X-Men 97 is arguably one of the best new television series that debuted in 2024. And the architect and showrunner of the first season of X-Men 97, Beau DeMayo, has started his own YouTube channel, and he has released an in-depth statement giving his side of what happened and the circumstances surrounding his firing from Marvel and Disney right before the first season of X-Men 97 debuted. Now, let me just say that I take allegations of abuse and harassment and misconduct very seriously. But honestly, I always had a weird vibe surrounding the allegations made against Beau DeMayo. And part of the reason is that they were always nebulous. There were never really any specifics as given by Marvel and DC regarding why he was dismissed. When I read trade publications like Vulture and The Hollywood Reporter and Looper and their coverage of his firing, those articles always stated that insiders close to the matter, and then XYZ, that DeMeo was accused of misconduct and abuse and that he was very difficult to get along with. But I'm thinking, if these allegations are that egregious, why didn't Marvel and Disney release specifics regarding what they supposedly found during their internal investigation? Now, DeMeo has released his own statement. I encourage everyone interested in the matter to watch his statement. But in his statement, he claims that when X-Men 97 was being produced in Atlanta, Georgia, he was met with a lot of racism and homophobia because he is a queer black man who is out from top Marvel executives and brass. And he also claims that he witnessed abuse in the workplace, crew abuse by Marvel management. And when he went to go report it, he was met with retaliation. I tend to believe Beau DeMayo because Marvel and DC, but Marvel has a history of shady dealings, y'all. So, speaking of Marvel's shady dealings, including on issues of race, let's talk about C.B. Cebulski, this guy. He is the current editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics. But in the early 2000s, before he was EIC, he was a product brand manager for Marvel. Now, Marvel Comics at the time had a policy that you could not be an employee of Marvel Comics and also write and draw Marvel Comics at the same time. But to get around that, C.B. Cebulski, who is a self-proclaimed admirer of East Asian culture, he created an Asian pseudonym, a man by the name of Akira Yoshida. And not only that, he created an entire biography for Yoshida, claiming that Yoshida learned English from loving and reading American comics. And under that pseudonym, Cebulski was able to not only work as an employee of Marvel Comics, but write Marvel comic books as well. Supposedly a big no-no. Now, when Marvel Brass wanted a face-to-face meeting with Akira Yoshida, C.B. Cebulski, get this, went so far as to hire an Asian man to portray Akira Yoshida in the face-to-face meeting. So years later, when all of this came out, and it did, just Google C.B. Cebulski and yellowface, because that's essentially what he did. Marvel's response was, well, we've handled the matter internally. There's that internal word again. And you know what happened to C.B. Cebulski? He was promoted to editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics, a position he holds to this very day. Now, again, like most corporations and businesses, the executives at Marvel Comics are overwhelmingly white. In fact, you can call it a good old white boys club. And yes, over the years, they have hired a few black comic book creators. But overwhelmingly, their executives and their creative teams are homogenous and white. But you all remember several years ago when Marvel announced that it was doing hip hop cover variants, where they took covers of iconic hip hop albums and did comic book cover variants of then current titles. Now, then editor in chief Axel Alonso went on press junkets proclaiming that Marvel was seriously committed to increasing Black readership of its comic books. But it was an obvious cash grab at the expense of the Black community by exploiting Black culture. You see what I mean when I say that Marvel has a history of shady dealings? And it's not just Marvel. We're talking about comic books and we're talking about superhero properties, but DC is just as bad. Because Ray Fisher, who was Cyborg in the live action Justice League film, y'all remember when he blew the whistle on the misconduct that he witnessed from Jeff Johns and then Geek King Joss Whedon? And how all of that came out as being true, yet his career has taken a big hit that it still has not recovered from. Given the dubious origins of the allegations that have been levied against Beau DeMayo, and also Marvel's history of shady dealings, of which I've only given 2 examples, I find this entire situation fishy. Oh, and also, Marvel has announced that this guy, Matthew Chauncey, is going to be replacing DeMeo. I find that interesting too. What is appalling to me is that X-Men 97 Season 1 is getting so much acclaim and accolades, and it should. But the main person responsible for delivering to us that masterpiece, Beau DeMayo, is being excluded. And if it were not for his vision and his passion and his skill, we would not have X-Men 97. So I think that for we people who enjoy stories about heroic men and women who fight against forces of evil and oppressive forces, in real life, we need to interrogate and take a closer look at who the real heroes and the real villains are. It's going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out.